Largest topic is these airstrikes.
That's right. As you can imagine, it's dominating the regional press. Let's start by looking at L'Orient Le Jour, the Lebanese paper. It talks about this anti-jihad coalition that's hit Syria hard. Now, in its editorial, it points out that for the first time since the beginning of the crisis in Syria over 3 years ago, the U.S. has decided to intervene militarily in the country with airstrikes. But L'Orient Le Jour says this Yankee show of force is too late. Last year, Barack Obama had a golden opportunity to hit Bashar al-Assad's regime where it hurt when there were those accusations that Damascus was using chemical weapons against its people. And at that time, the Islamic State group and al-Qaeda-affiliated groups weren't as powerful. L'Orient Le Jour says that Obama missed his opportunity, and now things are much more complicated.
A lot of the papers as well focusing on the fact that Arab nations have been involved in this as well.
That's right. Bahrain, Jordan, Qatar, Saudi Arabia, and the United Arab Emirates have all enlisted in this international coalition. This is the front page of The Guardian that says that Obama hails this support from these Arab countries, but it's quite a complicated alliance, and the Washington Post goes into more detail. Basically, these airstrikes in Syria are bringing together Persian Gulf nations that have recently been at odds with each other. Earlier this year, Saudi Arabia, the United Arab Emirates, and Bahrain withdrew their ambassadors from Qatar because they accused Qatar of bankrolling Islamist terrorists across the region. So you can see it's a very complicated situation. In its editorial, The Independent says that nevertheless, the involvement of Arab powers is crucial, especially because these are Sunni-dominated states, and they've signed up to fight against ISIS, which is a Sunni group. But this editorial points out it's the most delicate military operation in recent times. It's a messy war that makes earlier conflicts seem more straightforward, but in moral terms, it's unambiguous. According to The Independent, Obama doesn't have a choice but to get involved.
And a lot of the papers not quite as convinced that this is all the right strategy, are they?
Absolutely. The New York Times, in their editorial today, they talk about a wrong turn in Syria. It points out that Barack Obama's plan is neither clear nor convincing. He's put the U.S. at the center of this complicated war without allowing the public debate that needs to take place before entering another costly and potentially lengthy conflict in the Middle East. And according to the New York Times, in the absence of public understanding or discussion, the strikes in Syria were a bad decision. So very harsh words in the New York Times today. The Guardian is more measured in its editorial today. It says that the airstrikes against the Islamic State group in Syria are a worrying step into the unknown, but military in Syria is defensible, only to gain time for diplomacy. And according to The Guardian, it's up to regional states to solve the problem in Syria.
Bit more on regional states. Lots of papers also focusing on Turkey, aren't they?
That's right. Turkish media specifically pulled out an article in Hurriyet that points out that, well, Turkey is ready to aid the U.S. in these airstrikes against ISIS targets in Syria. But you can see here, Ankara wants to hear more about the U.S. plan before more military demands are made. And one crucial point is outlined in this article in Hurriyet, and that's the fact that Ankara believes that ISIS is a product of the Syrian regime's oppression, and destroying ISIS will not have very much sway unless you get rid of Bashar al-Assad. But that's what's so tricky about this situation, and you can read about it in The Independent, is that basically these airstrikes in Syria, well, they might actually benefit Bashar al-Assad because basically it means that Washington and Damascus are now fighting against the same enemy.
And that's what's so complicated about the region, isn't it? Enemies of yesterday, if you like, becoming allies of today. You put out a cartoon that you found in the Washington Post.
That's right. This is Tom Tolles. He really sums up the situation quite well. You can see a U.S. soldier talking to somebody in the Middle East. He says, "Who are you? Are you an enemy or are you an ally?" And the other guy is saying, "Well, I've got you down for ally between 2 and 5 this afternoon and enemy tonight after 8. So you can see they're both reading from a script, but it seems that script is changing and hard to follow and likely to become even more complicated down the line.
If it could get any more complicated. Thanks a lot, Flo. Flo, summing up the international papers and business, of course, with Stephen on Phosphate Cat. Latest news coming up as we've been getting those reports in the last half hour or so of more airstrikes within Syria. We'll bring you the latest on that. Plus, in focus, we continue our tour of Paris's cultural diversity. Going to be visiting Asian neighbourhoods to see the strong historical bond between the Far East and France.